Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I am so excited because I have somebody who is going to rock it today. He is a audio video engineer. He's a podcaster. He has his own network. He has his family doing things that is just unbelievable as well. He's got a lot to tell us today. He is, oh my gosh, he does audio record operations, editing, graphics, video mixing and switching. This is all stuff beyond what I even can understand because I just want to do click and paste. I'm a little bit more savvy than that, but really this stuff is very, very technical. He does web streaming, SDHD camera operations and projection along with breakout operations and lead. This is big stuff and on a massive scale as well. And he's got over 20 years experience in doing this stuff. To think that technology has gone that much over 20 years, just to think about when I was in high school, I didn't even have computers. It wasn't even there. So things are coming out, things are big, and he's got it going on. I mean, in live analog, in live engineering, I mean, this is just huge. Corporate and main stage engineering from the big time down to doing things right out of the home. This is amazing stuff. He's got 15 years of experience in that, video editing on location. Combine all this stuff. 35 years plus. Welcome to the show, Chris Jordan.
Hey, how you doing, Rebecca?
I'm just so excited because I have so many things on my mind to talk about. I want to talk about your show.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about your background. It could be all over the place because going way back when, this was stuff. I'm thinking pagers. I'm thinking.
Yeah. The phrase I use with people all the time that come up with their PowerPoint presentation and ask me to run it for them. I was like, if I'm going to run it, we're going to step into 1983 and next slide, please, real quick.
Yes.
Back when I was like the only kid in science that knew how to load the slide projector. You know, how to load a carousel into the slide machine.
Well, it's funny you say that because now I have some experience also in sales. And at one point of time, I was a district sales manager, and I used to take this projector and have these transparencies and put them, write something on these transparencies, put them and project it onto the wall. So it was really quite interesting. And it's just evolved into things where we can do things from the home, and the things that you do corporate wise to just these main events. These are huge things to do, and they are very intricate and detail oriented. How did you get from going to 1983 to, the 21st century? This is big stuff, Chris.
Well, it's thank you. It's been a long road for certain, and I went down a lot of paths, Rebecca. If I can refer back to our conversation a few days ago for our guest today. A few days ago, we were talking about children and how to bring children up, and when you notice that a kid keys in on something, follow that. Just rabbit hole with it. Let them go. I have found that my child loves buttons. I loved buttons and wires as a kid. I followed a completely different path when I went to college. I went down the route of the seminary my first year. After that, down a road of psychology with education, going to be a teacher or counselor in public schools. Went into youth ministry from there. And it wasn't till years later that somebody told me I was making my own music with things like what you see back here, and somebody was like, "You have a real aptitude for this. Have you ever considered this? This a hobby? It's not a job. What are you talking about?" Because sure, you could go out and be the next Rick Rubin if you want, but the chances of that are pretty slim to nil, even if you go to somewhere like Full Sail for an education in it. I had been lucky enough to be around the equipment and technical theater in high school, in helping friends who did things, installations, that kind of stuff. And I read more instruction manuals than I did fiction when I was a kid. That's just how my brain worked. And
I love it.
When I found out that I could be paid to travel around and even to be in my home and do what I did in technical theater in high school without a college degree, it blew my mind, especially the day that I got out of rock and roll and, like you said, found the corporate realm. The day I found corporate money, I ran arms wide open. I was like, goodness Lord, these people want to pay me amazing day rates, great, good, proper money. Not like, hey, here's $75 in a t-shirt for loading in a show with 18 wheelers full of equipment, which is very much rock and roll. You do it because you love it, and I still do it because I love it. It's just now I'm compensated better for my skill set.
Mm-hmm. I want to point this out, though, to the audience, because one of the things I really love to do is share things that will help people to move forward. And you have said some things that are really important, in that you've had a passion for something that you really love to do. And it wasn't that you had to do something with education to get it to move into this direction. And you have been very, very successful at it. You have a production company. You have an entire network. And you love what you do. This is really important.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to share this with the audience, that if you have a passion for something, you've got to follow your passion and do it, because you're going to be so pleased internally. And it's like you said, it's not like a job. It's like a hobby. And doing something you love is so rewarding, not only for yourself, but to everybody else that ends up being in contact with you because of it. The ripple effect is unbelievable.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of cut in there and point that out, because I really think that this is it's a blessing what has happened to you, and the realization. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it really is, like you said, not just a blessing, but it's the fact of, yes, it came through hard work, but what it really came more through was following what I was supposed to be doing.
Oh, yes.
And what I was supposed to be doing was nowhere near what people wanted me to be doing. And it's something like right now, directly in the room across from us, opposite my workbench. Like I said, all this stuff started when I was a kid. I used to literally get presents for my birthday and Christmas from family members that were like a box of broken items. And that would be one of their presents to me. It was like, here's a broken hairdryer and radio and computer keyboard. And I just ate that up. I would dismantle them and figure out how they worked and what the parts were and try to make things. And I've still got a workbench right across from this camera. And on the other side of that is my 2-year-old son. My 2-year-old son loves this stuff. If he doesn't know how to solder by the time he's 8, I will consider myself negligent. He loves wires. He loves buttons. So I built a rack of old broken equipment that he goes and plugs cables into. He's a 2-year-old and he knows how to plug in a microphone cable. I know grown people that can't do that.
Oh, Chris, you're doing a lot by what you just said in allowing him to do that. Not only are you really doing wonderful things as a father, which is what an example to everyone here who's listening, for those around you that see what you're doing. What a absolutely phenomenal example. For your child, this is extremely good for his sensory and for his development, because in dexterity also, I mean, there's so many things by what you're doing and how you are allowing him to do this that is making the neurons connect and all of the little things that go on that allows him to grow. These things are going to help him to be beyond intelligent with things, the things with his hands, all of those things. This is really important, because often we don't take the time to even talk about this. So I want to point this out. This is so good what you're doing, Chris. I mean, wow.
I saw the need for it. Like I said, I followed quite the path. I spent a little bit of time teaching, volunteer-wise as well as paid-wise, in the younger levels, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, junior high. I taught quite a bit, high school as well, but that was more in the volunteer area. But specifically dealing with pre-K and kindergarten. I call my son T-Man for a reason, T meaning little in Cajun, because he is literally a little man. He is a little person. He is a fully, and that's what people forget. We treat them like children when really they are underdeveloped adults, is what they are. We do not give them enough credit. I've taken very careful wording with my son in telling him no, and in differentiating between no and not yet. There are some things that are hard no, like, hey, that medicine cabinet, that's a hard no, son. That knife drawer, that's a hard no. The drawer with the Tupperware, not yet.
See, this is really good stuff that you're saying, because I have the same issue, and I did have the same issue with my daughter as she was growing up. Mm-hmm. So with my daughter, what I did was I would use things that would separate her behavior from her person. So instead of saying that's bad or you're bad, I would say that behavior is inappropriate.
Yes.
Or that is unacceptable. You cannot do that. Or because of this behavior, this is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then I would say, I still love you, but that behavior is not going, that behavior is unacceptable.
Yeah,
so like you, I chose my words because I didn't want her self-esteem and her mind to really be affected by the things that I said, because people, in my opinion, Chris, we're all good, deserving people of love and attention. And it's choices, it's behavior that cause certain things about that person to have had things happen. And those things can be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And to say that, anybody is defined by a moment, I've definitely had defining moments, but I wouldn't say that I have a moment that defines me.
I love that.
Like I said, my path has been so varied. It's been, it has not just been a trajectory.
I love that.
And even to think about my child, and people are like, my God, you're going to make him into a tech for it. And it's like, hey, if that happens, cool. Like, he can have a job anywhere doing anything he wants. Then he could do audio, video. He could build websites. He could build computers. He could build circuits from the ground up. Sweet. Those are all things that I have taught myself to do over the years. I went to school for about 6 months for audio engineering before I was told by one of the professors, you should really just go out and get a job doing this. You've already progressed to the point that most of our people are going to be whenever they get out of the studio. Like, they don't know what these cables are right now. You came in with a vast amount of knowledge.
Yes.
So they were like, my suggestion is it's the who you know and what you know industry. You already have the what you know. You just need to know people. So go out, put yourself in the situation to get to know people.
You have a really good point there, because oftentimes we think, I have all of these qualities and I can't do anything with it. But you have a really good point. You have got to make your circle of influence grow.
That's right.
Really important. And like, you can take a look at some of the presidents of the United States who didn't have certain formal education. They had self-taught education. And I believe it was Abraham Lincoln who became a lawyer due to being self-taught.
Yep.
It wasn't a formal education. So people can do anything that they want to do. And you have to not tell yourself you have limitations just because there's a lack of this or a lack of that. No, you can do anything you want to do. You have to do what you just said, though.
Well, number one, you have to see value in yourself.
Yes.
For so long, the things that I loved were considered hobby. You know, my inventing. I won't say which platform, but one of my platforms, the security question of what was your dream job as a child, and it was inventor. I wanted to be Doc Brown. I wanted to be the crazy scientist at the end of the road with a bunch of machines that nobody else knew what they did, and maybe they worked, maybe they didn't. That was something that I wanted to be. People thought that I was a nut. I am a nut. Come on over sometime. You'll see, Rebecca. But
I love it. No, but see, that's creative. It's creativity.
Yeah, it's the fact that I could have done it years and years ago. It took me till I was easily 28 was when I full on started my business. I was 28 or 29 and started selling recordings to musicians that I worked with, and I had a day job while I was out engineering. I engineered 5 nights a week until about 2 a.m. And then I was up at a day job at 8, 5 nights a week.
Okay, let me ask you. I mean, I want to talk about age here for a minute, just because I know in me, it was somewhere around 28 also that really certain things in me just began to come to fruition, all of life experience, along with things that I had learned, and then inner things that, I mean, just all of this. It's kind of like as a child, when you first have a child, you look at these certain developmental stages. At 6 months, they're going to do this. And at somewhere around 1, they're going to start walking. You're going to see them take their first step. And I don't think that at any other age in life that we don't have milestones that we begin to do things. And so it's just really interesting that you said 28, because it seems like that's kind of where it clicked for me too. And if I think about it and I look at others that at that age, it seems like life does different things and just blossoms differently at that time.
Yeah, that age tends to be a lot where people decide to start following a passion aside from their day job. It's when a lot of people start to realize that their day job is not their passion.
You have a good point.
When they start to get the unfortunate disillusionment. And don't get me wrong, like jobs are necessary, folks. We all need a job. Idle hands are the devil's playground, to go back to my seminary day. Literally. My 2 weeks with my son here in the last 2 weeks since I've had downtime and not been on the road have been manic, because I don't know what it's like to not be busy. So while he sleeps, I hop in the back and code website, or I built a bunch of trigger boxes because I had the parts and nothing else to do. So I built like mad.
Okay, so maybe the audience won't know what a trigger box is, and we've got to separate that from something really scary that could happen. So
sure. Well, granted, it is what it sounds like. It's a trigger box. It's a sequencer, but it's more for like fireworks. I'm actively working right now, Rebecca. I'm getting ready to turn 44, and I can't be quoted on air for this yet because I'm still working on it. I have a stuntman friend of mine who is a professional daredevil, crashing cars on fire, and I'm literally looking at being put on fire on purpose for my 44th birthday.
What?
So I was like, if I'm going to do a full body burn and do like this stuntman thing and have myself set on fire for my birthday, I'm going to build the box that does it.
Oh my goodness. Seriously.
So yeah. I'm still working on it. Don't know if it's going to happen, but it's one of those bucket list things. I will never, ever jump out of a plane. I will never, ever climb Everest because of my acrophobia.
Well,
But
I'm going to call it right now.
And I'm not that afraid of explosives.
Okay, well, I am. And so I'm going to call this right now. I would like to be the first person to be able to interview you. And if I have to go on location to do this, I'm going to ask.
Hopefully it will be live streamed. If it happens, it will be live streamed on the internet. I assure you. That was the 3 criteria from my wife when I mentioned Dr. Danger wants to set me on fire. Which is a common course of conversation. Whenever you talk to the man, he'll be like, "You will be set on fire sometime? I'm your guy."
Did you see that? My video was shaking over that. I mean, like, I have movement here.
So,
whoa!
Yeah, it was.
This is crazy. Okay, so on that note, I know we've got to wrap up because we're getting really short on time. But I want to have you back on the show. We've got more to talk about.
No, most definitely. The fact is, the reason I got into this field was because I love it. It was something that I found in life and happened to stumble upon, and now I have made it my mission. That when people ask me, and I get asked all the time from Lyft drivers, like, "How do you get into that?" "Oh, what did you do before you were a Lyft driver?" "Well, I did some camera work and stuff." "Here's a card. Give me an email." And if they give me an email, I will absolutely follow that up with information. Here's somebody in your town that you can contact.
I do the same thing.
Find work as a freelancer and do this. You got to be ready when they call. They may call Friday for you to go work on Wednesday. But
I do the same thing. I don't farm out my emails.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
This is like, we're gonna me and you, a personal thing. I don't like that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's bots out there and all this stuff, and I know it's really cool, but I still believe in that one-on-one contact and personal connection, and that's why I do this.
Same here. Very much the same reason. It's the fact of this is what's missing. A dialogue is what's missing.
Yes.
And I'm here to tell you, I travel around the country doing what I do. I spend a lot of time at hotel bars, spend a lot of time at airport bars, waiting on planes. It's silent. And it didn't used to be that way.
It didn't.
It didn't used to be that way. We used to have the pub. The whole reason behind Dudes and Beer was because in the days of our founding fathers, the public house is where people went. We shared neighbor fence lines with people that maybe we didn't agree with, but whenever we went into town, we sat at the same tavern. We had a glass of ale from the same barrel, and we talked about stuff, and we differed. And when we came back into town again, we still sat at the same tavern and had conversations. And we talked about religion, spirituality, science, politics, economics, all these things that are now verboten to talk about in public. And you wonder why. I remember my grandparents sitting around at Thanksgiving talking about politics and economics and stuff. And they disagreed. They disagreed with people, and we still saw people at Christmas. Yeah.
It was so okay to have an opinion. This is what it kind of made a balance in life. You were able to at least get another perspective on something, and that allowed you to see if you wanted to change your point of view.
Yeah, well, and like I said in our private conversation the other day, I'm sorry if my point of datum offends you.
Yeah.
All I'm ever do, I am agnostic when it comes to politics. All I ever do is just point out facts. Here's some facts. Both sides. Make up your mind.
You have to do that because this is factual, and then you get to decide what you want to do with that fact. And that's how I am. And
we've very much forgotten that as a society. We have forgotten the fact of polite conversation, the fact of listening. Just shut up and listen. There's an idea, folks. Just shut up and listen for a minute. And at the end of it, go, wow, that's interesting. I'm very glad to know what you believe now and why you believe it. Thank you so much.
You
And leave it alone. Leave it alone.
yes, but this
Let
is
them
a good
believe what they
point.
believe for why they believe it.
And you know what, though, Chris, it's a good point because then you know how to approach the other person in
Yeah,
a really healthy way. And
exactly.
I mean, these are things that are important. It's not something that we have to go, okay, I'm going to be offended because you believe that. No, you can go, I can embrace what you believe and I can respect that. And now I know how to have a healthy relationship with you because I know what not to do. And I mean,
Yeah,
it's not that we have to walk on eggshells, it's just a
no.
respect for everybody to have their own choices. And this is really cool that you bring this up. And I know that we're going to have another show here pretty soon
Oh,
because I am not going to let
numerous,
you.
numerous in the future, I hope, Rebecca.
Oh, big time. Because, Chris, you are talking about things that are very, very healthy. And these are things that really need to be conveyed and talked about frequently because we need to make an important and substantial difference in what's going on and bringing back some values into things
Yeah.
that have sort of eroded. And so I am definitely going to have you back frequently. You're gonna be the frequent flyer guest over here, and so
I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
So I want to thank you so much for being with us today, and I
Absolutely. Thank
want
you for having me.
my audience to become your audience as well. So
Same
please,
here.
please share your information so they know how to connect with you.
Absolutely. You can catch the Dudes and Beer podcast every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central. We're live on Facebook most of the time. You can download the Dudes and Beer app. You can actively chat in questions. You can start side conversations on the app, all kinds of stuff. You can also check me out talking about this industry, AV, and hearing stories from the AV world on the Talking Sound podcast. We also have some instructional episodes there. If you're a freelance AV tech like me, we also have an interactive freelance map where you can find different companies around the country that hire freelance AV techs. That's my way of paying it forward. So talkingsoundshow.com is the website for that. And of course, you can find all of that as well as the other great shows that we produce all on the HC Universal Network at hcuniversalnetwork.com.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. This guest, Chris Jordan with HC Universal Network, has a ton of shows. If you can't remember any of this, remember Dudes and Beer because you can remember that, I'm sure. And then you can type that in and you'll get connected, or you can connect and ask me how to get in touch with him. You've got to follow him. You got to connect with him. He's paying it forward. He's got the right mindset, and we need to stay in check. So let's make sure that we get on board with everything he's got going on and follow that. I love it. I love it. And I want to thank you all for tuning in today. I ask that you share this episode and everything that's going on with Chris Jordan as well with all of your friends, your family, everybody on Facebook and social media, all of the social media sites that you know, everybody that you know there, and all of the ones that you don't. Thanks for tuning in. This is Rebecca Sounds Reveille.